Sage Mode. No, I'm not talking about the guy who lives on the mountain and allows you to ask one question before sending you away, though you do learn it on a mountain from some very wise toads. Maybe it is the same thing. Anyway, it's the power Naruto learned just prior to Pain's attack on the Hidden Leaf, and it is an important part of his abilities, and has been used for quite some time by others. Sage Mode is one of my personal favorite techniques that any character in Naruto can use. It requires precision and accuracy to properly use, but when it is finally achieved, it grants power and abilities that even the Sage of Six Paths might have issues dealing with. That's what we're going to talk about today. So sit down and be as still as you can, because we're about to absorb some natural knowledge about our favorite technique. Welcome to the Amagi. Before we begin, we publish a new video every day, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. The Amagi's reach stretches beyond just this channel, so if you're a fan of us, please consider subscribing to our other channels and following us on all of our social media. Help us reach our goal of passing 100,000 followers on all of our accounts by the end of the year. Now, without further ado, let's get into the video. Sage Mode is an ancient and powerful technique derived by creating senjutsu chakra within one's body, by merging their chakra with the natural energies around them. If you're a Dragon Ball fan, you might want to compare this to a technique that Goku uses called the Spirit Bomb, which uses natural energy called Genki to form a massive spinning sphere of energy that is not called Rasengan. Anyway, this technique has existed well over 1,000 years and predates even the introduction of chakra through the Sage of Six Paths. Prior to using chakra, the toads of Mount Myoboku used senjutsu by taking the natural energy around them and using that to fuel their own forms of jutsu. It's also known that chakra itself was created by senjutsu, as the god tree that Kaguya Otsutsuki used to form the chakra fruit absorbed natural energies to form the fruit that would later give birth to chakra. There are 3 regions considered sage regions, generally areas where senjutsu is practiced and performed, those being Mount Myoboku, Ryuchi Cave, and Shikotsu Forest. The mountain is home to toads, the cave is home to snakes, and the forest so far is only confirmed to be home to Katsuyu the slug, the particular summon of Tsunade and Sakura. However, only Mount Myoboku and Ryuchi Cave are confirmed to be places where senjutsu is taught. There are various pros and cons to using Sage Mode, which provide a well-balanced concept from the point of power scaling. Sage Mode increases the physical attribute of a person by leaps and bounds, and also provides them with energy that allows them to go about a fight without getting tired, as well as to replenish the energy they lose in battle. The downside, however, is that a practitioner generally cannot move while absorbing this natural energy. In this way, they need to charge up before a battle, contain the energy, and then use it sparingly through the course of the battle, because once it's gone, and you need to recharge it. Beyond that, it takes incredible concentration, because if you absorb too little natural energy, you won't be able to use Sage Mode or Sage techniques. But on the reverse, if you absorb too much natural energy, you will slowly become an animal of the same type as those teaching you, generally either a frog or a snake, and then you will turn to stone. If you exercise the natural energy from you before the transformation ends, you'll be able to reverse the effects. However, if you turn to stone, there is no saving you. The inability to move in Sage Mode does have workarounds that Naruto and Jiraiya have managed to use to overcome this, one of which requires one of the toads from Mount Myoboku gathering natural energy and giving it to the user of Sage Mode. That particular technique was last used by Jiraiya in his battle against Pain, which would serve as our pervy sage's glorious final hour. Beyond this, Sage Mode and similar abilities are found all through the Naruto series, and the first true display of Sage power is by Sasuke during the Chunin exams and beyond. Sasuke was in possession of the Cursed Seal of Heaven, which was created by Orochimaru during his studies of Sage power. It was created through the use of Jugo's bodily fluids and Orochimaru's own senjutsu chakra, which allows one to take on a physical appearance consisting of different patterns of tattoo-like markings. The second stage generally turns the skin a dark color and gives them similar attributes to Jugo's own particular transformation from which it's derived. Jugo is a special case. He and his clan's power was descended from the snake sages of Ryuchi Cave. This particular variant of Sage Mode appears to lack the same cons of that from Mount Myoboku, as those with this form of Sage transformation seem to be able to naturally take in natural chakra, which nullifies the need to remain still. and also seems to make it easier to avoid becoming stoned. However, it does incite bouts of destructive insanity, as displayed through Jugo, who originally joined as Orochimaru's test subject to be cured of these fits. Both Sage Mode, Curse Marks, and Jugo's particular transformation appeared to be immune to the ninjutsu absorbing qualities of the truth-seeking balls, which is actually the way that Naruto and Sasuke managed to defeat Ten Tails Jinchuriki, Obito Uchiha. It is quite a versatile and powerful ability, and has been favored by some of the strongest warriors in history. It was known that Hagoromo and Hamada Otsutsuki would utilize this technique, which was later renamed Six Paths Senjutsu. It was the gift of Six Paths Senjutsu that Hagoromo gave to his son, Asura, which would later be given to his reincarnation, Naruto Uzumaki. Six Paths Sage Mode is a higher form of Sage Mode only obtainable by those with the power of the Sage of Six Paths, which is only achieved by having power granted to them by him or by absorbing the Ten Tails, which is considered as being basically the same as the Sage of Six Paths power. It boosts physical attributes and sensory perception even farther beyond that of regular Sage Mode, and boasts the ability to make use of truth-seeking balls, which Naruto sadly only used during the 4th Shinobi World War. It also grants the user knowledge of all basic nature transformations, as well as the ability to use Yin-Yang Release, which is the same technique that the Sage of Six Paths used to create the tailed beasts. This form of Sage Mode is known by its cloak that bears a Rinnegan-like pattern on the back, as well as 9 Magatama-like patterns. This ability was supreme until the birth of Baryon Mode, which was shown once and never again since Kurama died from it. Rest in peace. But even without Kurama, I don't see a reason why Naruto can't still use Six Paths Sage Mode. He might not be able to stack it with Kurama's Chakra Mode like he previously had, but even as he is now, basic Sage Mode makes him formidable enough. But, back to topic. Besides this, various other characters have used Sage Mode, one notable person being Hashirama Senju. Not much is known about his adventures, such as where he learned Sage Mode from, but I would assume it was from the Toads of Mount Myoboku due to the similarities of style. The only thing standing against this idea is Hashirama's pupils. They do not possess the oblong shape like the eyes of the Toads, or those who studied with them. Considering that he doesn't possess any similarities with Snake Sage Mode users, we can cross them off too. The only other place he could have trained was... Could he be a practitioner of Shikotsu Forest? His Sage Mode consists of lines that go down from the eyes, not too dissimilar from Koji's, and he possesses a bullseye mark on his forehead. In the manga, the color of his Sage Mode markings are red, and in the anime it's black. I prefer the black better. Hashirama Senju used this during his battles during the 4th Shinobi World War. In it, he would use his wood release to allow him to move as well as charge his Senjutsu energy. That, along with his natural Asura Chakra reserves, as well as that granted to him by his Senju clan connection, made him an exceptionally powerful shinobi, with power and stamina that would blow your mind. Besides him, Jiraiya also knew Senjutsu techniques, which he could only use in Sage Mode. Jiraiya was taught this technique by the Toad, Fukusaku. Jiraiya was a formidable opponent in Sage Mode, however, due to his inability to properly balance this, he gained Toad-like traits. Not enough to be in danger of turning to stone, but enough to make his appearance and bodily movements far more Toad-like than before. Besides the change in his eyes that made him look more amphibian, he also gained a larger nose, webbed feet, and legs that seemed more suitable for jumping rather than walking like a normal person. While this was proof of his imperfection using the technique, it did provide its own set of boons. Becoming more like a toad, he could hop just like one. That, on top of the speed increase that came with his Sage Mode, makes him a bit tougher to hit though. Not tough enough for pain it seems, so again, RIP. Hope you're chasing chicks in ninja heaven, Burpee Sage. Along with this, Jiraiya managed to nullify the effects of the requirement to be still while charging Senjutsu by fusing his 2 Toad friends, Fukusaku and Shima, to his body, which would allow them to charge his Senjutsu chakra while he moved, and it also had the added benefit of allowing him to use techniques he was normally unable to do. One of the greatest abilities that he was granted from this was the Jutsu Sage Art Goemon, in which Jiraiya released a steady stream of oil which Fukusaku could propel forward with wind release, and Shima could set aflame with fire release. This would make a tsunami of flaming oil that would reach temperatures up to thousands of degrees. This made Jiraiya truly a great warrior and practitioner of Sage Mode. The only issue he had with it was that it turned the stomachs of girls he liked, meaning it was only a break glass in case of emergency sort of technique. Besides him, his, spoiler alert if for some reason you do not know, Jiraiya's clone, Koji Kashin, was also a practitioner of Sage Mode, and he appeared to have even greater mastery over Sage Mode when compared to his predecessor. While Koji's physical traits did not change much beyond the pigmentation around his eyes, his abilities were increased by large amounts, giving him massive boosts of strength, which allowed him to press Ishiki Otsutsuki's vessel, Jigen, and forced him to evolve into his true body, which, for all intents and purposes, was what pressured Ishiki to push his timetable up, which would eventually lead to his demise. Beyond this, he could also use the technique Sage Art 5 Fire Gods Fan of Flames, which could create a massive wall of fire. Minato Namikaze also managed to master Sage Mode with little to no alteration in physical appearance beside the shift in his eyes, which marks him as a true sage. However, despite his ability to use the technique, he admits that it's difficult for him to use. He takes too long to charge up and just finds it impractical for common battle, and hasn't used it very much. However, his son Naruto would use this ability commonly and perfect it far more than his father, and would go on to rival Hashirama Senju and possibly even surpass him as the greatest Sage Mode user in the history of Shinobi. Naruto trained on Mount Myoboku with the toads to achieve it. His learning curve was softened with the application of a special oil which allows one to take natural energy inside themselves passively, very similar to Jugo's clan's ability. And if at any time Naruto gathers too much natural energy, the toads had a special staff which could knock all of the natural energy out of a user should they strike them with it. Through his training, he managed to master Sage Mode and could even learn the Frog Kata Taijutsu style, which allows him to cover himself in an invisible chakra cloak that nobody else, not even a Rinnegan user, can see. The only person that can witness it is another practitioner of Sage Mode. The ability allows one to use their energy as an extension of themselves, letting them hit someone even when it appears that their fist has missed its target. It also allows one to dodge an attack at the last moment and counter-strike almost perfectly. For Naruto's answer to the need to stay still while charging, Naruto instead used his Shadow Clone Jutsu to charge while he fought. He couldn't use more than 5 Shadow Clones at a time due to the need to focus, but he could use this as a crutch to keep his power up in battle, since Fukusaku could not fuse with Naruto due to Kurama's interference. As Naruto grew as a user, he found he could enter Sage Mode far quicker and change faster, which lessened his need to use the Shadow Clones for charging. This was further lessened when Naruto managed to stack it with Kurama's Chakra Mode. This allowed him to grow in strength and ability faster. After this, Naruto was granted 6-path Sage Power by Hagoromo Otsutsuki, which allowed him to perform various Sage techniques and use all 5 basic chakra natures as well as Yin Release, Yang Release, and Yin Yang Release. He also found he could use his Rasa and Shuriken without kickback and could even further add different chakra types to it, including Kekkei Genkai releases due to his connection with the tailed beasts. It gave him access to truth-seeking balls, the power of which was enough to level a forest. Naruto continues to use Sage Mode throughout the series and even went back to maining it after the death of Kurama, and was seen using it in the battle between Borushiki and Code in the recent arc. And representing the Snake Sages would be Kabuto, Jugo, and Mitsuki. Kabuto gains his own Sage Mode by implanting himself with cells from Orochimaru's remains, taking in bodily fluids from Jugo, and training under the Snake Sages. In his own Sage Mode, he has many serpentine traits such as scaly skin, a set of horn things, and a literal snake coming out of his navel. This snake also has the ability to utilize the skill sets of anyone whose cells he has taken into himself. So basically, he's perfect Cell now. He also has Brill covering his eyes, which are supposed to protect him from Genjutsu, although it didn't save him from Itachi's Izanami. Jugo's version of Sage Mode is one of the strongest that doesn't include 6-path Senjutsu. It gives him complete control over his physical structure. He can choose how and where to apply Senjutsu energy, which allows him to shift parts of his body, such as his arm, which he can restructure into a piston to give himself increased striking power. If he needs speed, he can form boosters on his back, which can propel him forward. He can even turn these boosters into a massive chakra cannon, similar to what was used against the Raikage. When someone who possesses a curse seal formed from his own fluids is injured, he can offer them his flesh to heal them, although it apparently rewinds its age a bit. He can also take cells from others, even those who aren't holders of a cursed mark, to heal himself and or return himself to his adult body. Jugo's version of Sage Mode is incredibly versatile, though it puts strain on his mind and makes him more violent than he wishes to be. However, he is an incredible weapon overall. It's one of the reasons why he is my personal favorite of Sasuke's squad. Mitsuki also possesses a form of Sage Mode and a Sage Transformation, which allows him to form a single horn in the center of his forehead, and to get a cyan-colored chakra cloak not too dissimilar from something Naruto would display with his 6-path Senjutsu. It also allows him to form snakes out of his energy, which he can use to attack people. He has been known to be able to stack a Sage Transformation with Sage Mode. This makes him incredibly strong, but it also can damage his cells, and in turn his vital organs beyond repair to the point that he requires life support. and the aid of his paternal figure, Orochimaru, to grow new organs for him. But in turn, he becomes extremely fast, so fast that even Orochimaru can't detect his movements, which makes him a powerful practitioner of Sage Mode. What about you? What are your favorite Sage Modes, and what are your favorite moments with it? My personal favorite I mentioned above. I love the part where Jugo forms a chakra cannon to hit the Raikage with. That guy's personality is just too much. I also like Sasuke's cursed seal. I guess I'm more of a Sage transformation guy than just purely Sage Mode, although I'll take either. Be sure to give us comments about your favorite characters, and make sure to click that like button and subscribe to show your support for the channel. We seriously appreciate it. Peace out.